I've met some of you, and some of you I haven't met yet. My name is Fawzy. I'm the founder and CEO of Octiv. We are an all-in-one global gym management platform, purpose-built for gyms just like yours. But this is not why we're here today. It's not a sales pitch. This weekend is a very exciting weekend for all of us here. And throughout this talk, I'm going to talk about gym owners, I'm going to talk about coaches, and I'm going to talk about entrepreneurs. And I'm going to use these terms interchangeably. Something that I'm very kind of big on in our company is every person in our company is an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur. You know, when you start a business, you take a big risk and you invest your time and capital. And the people that you hire, especially in small to medium businesses, one of the biggest traits is intrapreneurs, people who are builders, people who treat their livelihood and their business like their own. And it's just so important to make that link. So what we get to do here this weekend is we get to work on our businesses, not in our businesses. On a day-to-day basis, operationally, we're all hustling, we're all working, we're all executing, and really we don't get a chance very often to take a step back to think about the business and work on the business. And I find these moments where you take yourself out of the day-to-day environment, that is when magic happens. That is when the needle moves. And I've always said at these events, you know, you guys are attending lots of talks, you're talking to lots of vendors, you're talking to fellow business owners and fellow coaches, and there's just so much information and so much coming at you, and it's a lot to take in. So, in my opinion, if I leave this weekend with one thing that I can action, or one piece of inspiration that leaves me better off than when I entered, it has been a worthwhile investment of time, money, energy. Because we could all be sitting on a beach somewhere or drinking a cup of coffee with our family, but this is really the time when we get to impact our businesses. So I'm very honored to be standing in front of you here today. I feel a lot of pressure talking to the people in this room because I feel like I'm talking to the best gym owners and coaches in Europe. So yeah, I hope I can add some value to your lives, and if I don't, at least you might win a ticket to the semi-final. So, before we get into the meat of today's topic is raising our game in a fast-changing, competitive landscape. How do we raise our game? I'd like to talk about a few principles, business and life principles, that I've kind of learned along the journey. I started the business about 9 years ago, and along the way, as you guys can all imagine in your own lives, there's been good times, bad times, hard times, good, easy times, and all of these things have been learning experiences. I got involved with an organization a few years ago called EO, and EO is Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global network of CEOs and entrepreneurs around the world from every different walk of life and every different industry. And something that I learned while being a part of this network is that all businesses are very much the same. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. We're all selling different products, but at the heart of it, I found that there are 4 key pillars to any business that are kind of uniform. And I learned this because at EO, we were put in groups of 4 to 5 business owners, and it was called the Forum. This is my forum. And we met once a month. And every month we would meet. It was called an accountability session. We would discuss our goals. We would discuss what's going well, what's not going well. And what I learned is that in my group, we had the owner of an accounting firm, the owner of a furniture brand, the owner of a cruise ship launching company, and the owner of a property development company. And the funny thing is that we all had the same challenges. We all had a strategy. We all needed people to execute on our strategy, and we needed to manage cash. And so, why am I telling you all this? Because I'm quite aware that I'm sitting in a room of gym owners and coaches, and I'm not a gym owner or a coach. So you might be thinking, Octiv is a tech company, why is any of this going to be relevant to me? And kind of, this is what I'm trying to get across, is that I think we go through similar experiences and similar challenges. At EO, there was a principle called Gestalt. It was a rule of EO, and it's something that I've taken forward in my life in general. By a show of hands, who here has been at dinner with friends, relatives, other people, and they give you some advice on how to run your business or how to do your coaching? I think we've all been there. Most of the time, the advice is not very welcome because chances are you've probably thought about these things already, and no one really understands your business the way you do, or your craft. So the concept of Gestalt is that I'm not allowed to give anyone advice, but what I can do is I can share experiences that I've had that may be relevant to the situation, and from my experiences, you may be able to glean some inspiration from something that I have done right or wrong. And it's learning from other people's mistakes and experiences. So really, the things that we're going to talk about today, I want to make sure that it's understood that this is not advice, and it's not a formula, and it's not a recipe. What it is, it's things that we've experienced that I hope will spark ideas and spark thoughts and spark inspiration. So this, you may have seen this before, but we all have a plan, and our plan is quite linear. We plan to get from A to B, and what ends up happening is something more like that, the reality. So something that is very important to really understand from the get-go is that the plan is never linear, and if it was, that would be the exception and not the rule, and it possibly means that your plan wasn't aggressive enough. But you being here today and this weekend tells me something about who you are. It tells me that you've got a growth mindset. You want to improve whatever it is that you're working on, whether it's your craft or your business. And so I like to think that everyone here has got big dreams. Along the way, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and the most important thing to remember, what I've learned, is that everything is temporary. So when things are going really well, for now, right, it's not going to be like that forever. And it's important to know that, because when you're flying, if you think that it's always going to be that way, you become complacent, and that's when things go wrong. And when things are going not so well, it's also important to know that it's temporary, because having that mindset of understanding that this is temporary, this too shall pass, gets you through, and it gives you the right mindset to come out strong. So this is something that really, it means a lot in my life, and in our business there's been ups and downs. We've all been through COVID pandemic. Our industry was under a lot of strain, and now we've come out of it, touch wood, and it feels like things are almost pre-pandemic again. And if at the beginning of the pandemic, it was quite scary because it was uncertain. We didn't know how long is this going to last. Are we going to last? Yeah. All right. So, how big should I be thinking? So something I've learned is the difference between a $1 million business and a $100 million business is not how hard you work. It's got to do everything with how big you think. So the people who build a $100 million business build a $100 million business because that's how big they were thinking. And those same people, if they were aiming at $1 million business, probably wouldn't surpass $1 million by far. And so the numbers that I'm mentioning here are just like placeholder example numbers. They're not meant as real figures, but it's just so important to understand, what do I want? Like, do I want a lifestyle business that gives me a great lifestyle? I know it's not going to be a global big business, but it's going to give me a really good lifestyle. I'm going to be able to provide for my family and do something I love. Or do I want to build something that is a global business or a national business or something that is bigger than just me? And both of those answers are really like perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with either of them. But the most important thing is to actually think about and decide, what is it that I actually want? And I know this because when I started the business, I didn't know how big I wanted to build the company. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go. I kind of had this idea that I was really passionate about, and I started building it, and it was quite like, let's see where this goes, right? And that was fine for a time, but it got to the stage where I had to think about, what are we doing here? And this stage actually started during, it was before COVID, but during COVID it's really the time when it became very important, because we built a company that was doing quite well. Our clients loved working with us, we loved doing what we do. And then COVID happened, and overnight it was super stressful. I mean, if I think about it now, COVID was probably one of the best things that happened to our businesses for this specific reason. Everyone was just like panicking, you know, cancel my gym software, and we were like, we had staff, we had fixed costs, and as you guys will know. But during COVID, I had to take a step back and think, what do I really want here? What am I trying to build? And actually, the time of COVID was a really, really special time. Well, special was a big word, but it was a really hard time, but it forced us to think back to first principles. So during this time, I took a step back. When we started coming out of COVID, we had about 350 to 400 clients. We managed to get the business back to a level where we were breaking even again. So we were, going to be profitable. It grew. We had a really cool team of people. We loved working together. But I really thought about it. I was like, cool, we've just been through this nightmare. What do we really want out of this? And I took a step back, and I've got a meditation practice where it involves a lot of visualization, which I strongly believe in. As you can see, I'll get there. And I was thinking, cool. So if I was to picture 5 years into the future, what would I want? And I would want to be, when I say I would want our company to be one of the top 3 gym management companies in the world. I would want a global team, and I articulated my numbers of this is, how many clients we would need to achieve that. This is the kind of environment we need. Where do we want to be, and so on. Out of that, we realized that, okay, with our current resources, we're not going to achieve that in a reasonable time frame. So we decided, cool, so I think it's time to raise our first big investment round. And this is a very daunting thing for a sole founder, because it's been 100% my company, and we're going to bring financial investors in, and so I decided if I'm going to do this, I'm only going to do it with the right people, and identified it's the top venture capital firm in Africa. We're from Cape Town, by the way. And long story short, we pitched. We got a really good deal with the right people. Today, we're on just under 1,000 clients around the world, and we're growing at a rate that we've never grown at before, and we're able to hire people across the globe. And why am I telling you this? This is something I truly believe in, that if you believe that something is possible for you, and you have this real belief in your heart, and you can visualize it and really articulate it, it ends up manifesting. So when I do a visualization practice, it's part of my morning routine, I think about the kind of business that I want to build. I think about my family and the kind of culture we want to have as a family. I think about who do I want to be, and I try and feel those feelings of what does it feel like to be this person. And what ends up happening from that is that if I start every day this way, I by default start acting and behaving like this person, and it manifests. Things come to life. A year ago, I visualized standing and speaking to the top gym owners in the UK and coaches, and here we are today. This was before I had chatted to Rickard, standing right there, who introduced me to Henrik. It's before I even heard of Coaches Congress. And it's funny how things happen when it's designed to happen. You design it to happen. And this kind of brings me to this quote, which I love, which is the main trait of the top 1% of entrepreneurs is a bias to action. It's not planning, it's not strategy, it's not intelligence, it's not education, it's a bias to action. So I've got this idea for something that I want, and I'm actually going to take action to make it happen. And so that's kind of where visualization, belief, turns into manifestation. It's not magic. It is actually, it's a fact of taking action on these things that I have now established that I want. And another quote that I really love is from The Alchemist. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. And I'm so honored to be standing in front of you guys today, talking about these things that are very close to my heart. Cool, so that was just the foundations of what's to come. And I think what I'd love to do is share with you my journey of how my CrossFit coach changed my life. And it sounds so cliche, it sounds like a CrossFit testimonial video, but it's the truth. And I made sure that the team included a picture of me when I was still a beast in 2013. I joined CrossFit in 2013, and the coach that I had at the time was different to any other coach that I had before that. Why was this? So first of all, most of us here are CrossFitters. I can spot like one or two people who aren't purely CrossFitters. But when I say it was different, it's something that I started and I became addicted to it and I became obsessed with it quite quickly. And what is the reason for this? And one of the main reasons is that my coach, and actually the gym that I was at, it was like the culture of the coaching team. The way they coached was very much not just a prescription of this is the workout for today, let's get started. It was an education, and it taught me how to train. I thought I knew how to train because I'd spent my life going to gym, but this method of coaching was teaching why we were doing certain exercises, the energy systems being deployed, the stimulus, how to structure a workout, why the workout is structured in this way, the strategy behind attacking this workout. So now when I train, which is not as often as I would like, I know how to train. I can walk into a gym, whether I'm walking into a CrossFit box or doing my own thing, I understand how to train. So this was a big deal for me. Not only that, obviously there was nutrition education and lifestyle education. And so what I would implore you guys to do is to make sure that you're focusing on teaching people why there's a certain lifestyle and why the training is structured in a certain way. This was one of the things that really made a huge difference in my life. The next is that out of this gym that I started training at, I identified a need of something that is needed, and I started a business that combines things that I'm very passionate about, which is fitness, technology, and people. And the trajectory of my life completely changed because I was in a corporate world before, and all of a sudden my entire career had changed, and we're standing here today and we built something that we're very proud of. So the point of what I'm saying is that I'm just one person, and you guys get to do this with hundreds of people on a daily basis, and you've got the potential to really change people's lives. And it's again something that is said in passing, and it's said on social media testimonials, but it's a very, very real thing. And it's so important to understand why you are doing what you're doing and what is it that you want to build, because the impact is huge. I call gym owners and coaches influencers, and I don't mean it in the social media sense of an influencer, like influencers are all we know. But when I did my first workout, and I picked myself up off the floor afterwards, got in the car, and I drove straight to the Reebok store, and I bought the CrossFit Nanos and the shorts and the shirts, and I did this because my coach was wearing this stuff, and I saw how the coaches and the other people were training, and they were eating lots of boiled eggs. And so for the next few months of my life, I ate boiled eggs and avo. And so in terms of influence, I make jokes, but it's the truth. It's people look up to their coach from a fitness perspective, from a nutrition, from a lifestyle perspective, and even from a life perspective. Our coaches are like life coaches. The number of times I walk into my gym and I have a conversation, I'm like, geez, that was quite deep, So it's people look up to coaches. So this is a huge responsibility, obviously. And us as a business, we feel this responsibility because the reason why we exist is to allow and enable you guys to do that, to have impact. So it's funny, but when we talk about our why in our company, our why is to make more people around the world active and healthy. And then you think okay, but you have a gym management software for gym owners, so what do you mean people active? Well, if we can help gym owners to grow, more people are becoming active and healthy, and that's really why we do what we do, because at the core of it, we kind of have very similar values. Sorry, I've got my notes here. I'm not a superstar like Chris Cooper, and you don't need notes. Cool. So over the last 8 years, we've seen an evolution in the fitness industry, and it's how we started, and it's how we're managing to grow. And the evolution is the fitness industry is going from very niche, about 10 years ago, to quite widespread, and it's actually becoming mainstream. It's becoming the new normal way for people to train. In the past, most people just trained at a big global gym, and you would go and you would do your own thing, where you have a personal trainer, which is quite expensive. Whereas when it started off, there was a handful of boutique gyms and owner-operated studios and boxes, and it was very niche. So I would go to dinner, and I would be the only one at the table who is not training at a global gym and training at a CrossFit box. Now I go to dinner, and pretty much everyone is training at a boutique gym. And so it goes from the early adopters in the beginning to more widespread and mainstream, because this concept's been proven and there's more players in the market and more work. So why I believe this has happened, which I don't think is new to any of you, personalization. You are known by name. My coaches know my children's names, and if I don't attend in a few days, I get a message. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. And that's huge. Personalization. Community. We all understand this concept of community and human connection. Healthy competition. we're all competitive by nature on a spectrum. So some people are extremely competitive, and other people are not very competitive, and maybe they are benchmarking themselves against themselves, which is great, but we're all competitive by nature. And accountability. So if I go to gym on my own, and I plan to do 5 by 5, usually I'll get to 4 sets and I'll be like, yeah, that was good enough for me. I'm going to call it a day, it's time to get a smoothie. But obviously when I'm training in a group environment or an instructed environment, I finish the workout, and that's huge. Not only that, but if you're training with your friends and your friends are going to be there, it gives you more motivation to be there. So I think that all these factors contribute to why the boutique industry is growing, and why I don't believe it's grown to anywhere close to its potential. I think there's still a lot of growth to be done. What this means is that there are many more players in the market. So when I joined the CrossFit Box, we were like one of 3 CrossFit boxes in Cape Town. And now there's about 80, 90 CrossFit boxes in the area. What we've seen, obviously it's more competition, which I believe is a great thing. We've seen better businesses. So in the past, it was almost a sin for gym owners to talk about money. We're doing this for the love of the game. Whereas now, we're seeing these businesses being built in a way that is sustainable and profitable. And I think we all understand that if a business isn't cash flow positive, profitable, and sustainable, nothing else really matters, because you don't get to continue doing what you love doing. So the business needs to make sense. We're seeing better quality facilities. So the whole thing about the early adopters going into more widespread and mainstream is that the early adopters don't mind if the bathrooms aren't very clean. They don't mind if the equipment is not up to scratch. They don't mind if there's no barista and a coffee machine and a smoothie when you're done. They don't mind that it's grungy. To be honest, I thought it was quite cool, right? The early adopters don't mind if you've got bugs in your software. But as you grow, and as an industry grows and becomes more mainstream, people demand better, because I'm no longer an early adopter. I'm joining something that is now tried and tested, and I need quality. So there's better quality facilities, more capable gym owners and coaches, which is amazing. People here are investing time and money to be here to improve, and we're seeing this more and more. And business owners are not just a really passionate coach who now has a business and doesn't really know how to run a business. People are educating themselves, which is really cool. Better quality customer experience. So, I don't know, I'm sure you guys will know what I mean, when back in the day, there was actually no way of getting in touch with the gym. Like if you phone the number on the website, they just don't answer, don't really get a response to an email. Whereas now, it's actually, gyms have become more professional, and there's systems and processes in place, and I believe we're a part of that, and there's better platforms and so on, and knowledge about the importance of customer experience, because first impressions matter. You're not just dealing with early adopters and people who are just passionate about CrossFit. You're dealing with a lot more people. And great brands. So this is a point that actually speaks quite a bit to the next portion of this talk. The most successful boutique gyms that I've seen have got a really, really good standalone brand. So like the gym that I train at in Cape Town, Motley Crew, they have been very successful, and they've actually become quite well known, not just in their geography, they're quite well known in other countries as well, because of people coming to Cape Town and dropping in. And their brand is standalone. They have a brand called Motley Crew, and they've got personality, and they've got character, and they happen to have a gym, right? So this is something that's like super important to me, is that, when we think about our brand, it's not just gym management platform. We are Octiv. Our brand it's got its own nature, its own culture, its own personality. Our why is to make people more healthy and active and we do this by helping gym owners to run better businesses. Oh, and we happen to have a gym management software. Right, so if you think pandemic times, you may have a gym. Your why is to make people more active and healthy, and to make them accountable, and to create a sense of community, to build a community. When your gym had to close down during Octiv, your customers' needs didn't change, right? So they still needed fitness and health, they still needed accountability, etc. So you can offer them that in more ways than just the brick and mortar. And it's just having the brand that stands alone that can allow you the opportunity to do that. Okay, so I've been talking a hell of a lot and I haven't gotten to the point yet. The point of all of this is what I believe is the key differentiator of businesses. Now you may think and you may say, what about marketing, what about financial management, what about this and that and that? All those things are obviously important. But I believe what sets one business apart from another is culture. Because if we think about CrossFit boxes, boxing gyms, yoga studios, they all do the same things. Our software does the same things functionality-wise as push press and team up and so on, but we have to differentiate ourselves. They've got a personality, and we've got a personality. So this brings me to what is culture? And culture is just that. It's a business's personality. When you're a solo founder, the business's culture is your personality. But as you grow and you have more clients, you have more staff and more partnerships and brands that you work with, etc., culture can change and evolve. And it either evolves positively or it can evolve negatively. So we'll get into that in a second. Why does culture matter? Okay, so the reason I think it's the most important piece in differentiating is because you may have the best looking facility, you may have the best equipment, you may be in the best location, you may have the best software, but if you don't have a good culture, those nice things will bring people in, but those same people will walk straight back out. And we've seen that across the board, across all kinds of businesses, not just gyms, not just software, in that, you know, you walk into a business, it's all really good, they've got a really great website, and you start dealing with the business and you realize that this business is not resonating with you. So it's kind of like human relationships. If you think about romantic relationships, you may meet somebody who is your perfect ideal look, and you go out for dinner and you realize that your personalities are clashing, and then it doesn't last. So what informs culture? So like I said, the fundamental aspect that informs culture is personality, but there's something else, it's also your strategy. So if you think about it from a gym perspective, it comes back to, what do I want to build? Am I building a gym to build the best athletes that we can send to the games? Or am I building a gym for the everyday person who is tired and stressed and wants to come in and feel better and get healthy and just have fun? Those two things are both very beautiful things, but they have very different cultures and very different ways of execution. And so if you have a gym for high performance athletes and a normal person joins, they won't stay. And if you have a gym for the 99% of the public and then you get a top athlete, they won't stay. So it's important to establish, like, what am I trying to build? Like, none of us are for everybody. As soon as you start thinking, you know, everybody can train here, that's a problem. It means that actually you're not a good fit for anyone because you're too broad. Yeah. So kind of this is what informs culture. Right. So how to shape culture? So from my experience, it's very important to be very deliberate about shaping your culture and not let culture shape you. When we think about, when I was talking about what is culture, culture is not things that we say. It's very easy to stand up in front of a whiteboard and write like great words down, like we value integrity and we value transparency and we care and we, all of those things are really good in principle, but it's not about what you say, it's what you do. It's not just a set of beliefs, it's a set of actions. So when it comes to articulating the culture, it's very important to be very decisive about, what are the main points of our culture that we need, and they stem from why are we doing this, So Simon Sinek talks about the why. I'm sure you guys have heard about that already. Articulating the culture in detail. This is exactly what we need, and then it doesn't help to just articulate it and then continue with your day. Processes need to be built that allow the culture to happen, that allow culture to thrive, and that allow values to manifest. So, I'll get to that in a second, but if I tell my team we're trying to build a high performance culture in our company, that's great. But if we don't build processes to encourage high performance and to track and to make people accountable, then it just doesn't happen. And the third one is probably the most important one, is to remove and be ruthless about removing anything or anyone that is negatively affecting your culture. So from a gym context, you may hire level 3 coach who is technically the best at what they do and has the most knowledge. But your culture and your values, you value care and you value empathy. And this person is very, very good, but they don't have a lot of empathy and they don't care so much, they just want performance. And what will end up happening is this person doesn't resonate with the values of the business, and they will end up attracting more people just like them. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with just focusing on performance and building performance, but if it doesn't resonate, you're going to end up with an environment that you didn't want, right? So removing toxic culture is a very important key. Usually, from where I'm sitting, by the time I find out about someone that is toxic in my company, it's usually a little bit too late. Usually, a lot of damage has already been done. And something that I've learned is to be decisive about these things, and not to wait and let it linger. It gets harder and harder. Cool. So, culture and practice. So, I've spoken about what is culture, how to build culture, but I wanted to share with you guys some actionable stuff that we've done in our company that promote some of our values, especially at the stage of business where we're at now. And again, these are not prescriptive. This doesn't mean, that it will work for any of you. But the idea is to really think about what are your values and what are some actionable things that we can implement to make sure that this company has a pulse and that the company is what we want to build. So performance. Like I mentioned, we're at a phase in our business where we are in a growth phase, and performance and efficiency is very important. So how do we build a high performance culture in our business? We've got a few ways of doing that. So the most important thing is you have to have the right people in the right positions, right butts in the right seats, and the bus needs to be going in the right direction.
Only that.
Yeah. And everyone needs to understand what is expected. So sometimes you may hire someone and you think they know what to do, right? But it's super important to articulate what are the expectations. So what am I expecting from you? And do you agree with these expectations? So everyone is aligned with what is expected. Then the meeting rhythms. So So we meet, every team in our business meets every single morning for 10 to 15 minutes. And it's called a daily stand-up. And it's a quick, what were my wins from yesterday? What are my priorities for today? And is there anything that I'm struggling with or stuck on? And what this does is that it allows us to, in real time, understand when there is a problem. And in real time, being able to step in and assist or provide support. We used to do a team meeting once a week, and we wouldn't meet apart from the team meeting. And once a week is not enough, because this person might have an issue on Monday, and you only find out about it on Friday. So, meeting rhythms. And we've got based on the strategy of the company, we've got a customer team, because as we're building the company and as we're growing, the most important thing for us is quality. And we pride ourselves on the personalization of the service that we offer to our clients. So we've got a team dedicated to making sure that clients are getting the best possible experience that we can offer. And we've got a growth team. And the growth team are myself, Leslie standing at the back, our head of product and our head of marketing. And we meet once a week, and the customer team meets with me once a week. So we've got this strategy, we've got these goals, and not only are we just all trying our best, but we've set up some processes to make sure that we can reach them. Empathy and mental health. So I've just spoken a hell of a lot about high performance and metrics and all of that, but I believe that it needs to be balanced with empathy and mental health. We understand, as the leader of the company, I understand that people are full human beings and they've got lives in work and outside of work. And I'm obsessed with my company, but the person who's an intern might not be obsessed with my company the same way I am. So it's important to understand that. What I've usually found is when someone's not performing very well, or if they're stroppy or in a bad mood, usually the problem stems from something that's happening in their personal life. And that's a big realization, because as soon as you realize that and you get to the root cause of it, first of all, the person understands that you actually care about them, and you don't just care about their output, and that's huge. In terms of mental health, we've implemented a once a quarter, anyone can take a mental health day, and we're all working really hard, and we get to stages. Every single one of us, I'm sure, gets to a stage where you feel like a little bit overwhelmed, and you feel like, if I continue this way, I'm going to burn out. I'm working really hard, I'm training hard, and I've got 2 kids who are small, so I don't sleep very well. So the mental health day is to make sure that we recognize that mental health is important in the company, and it's transparent, and we don't have to hide from it. And when someone books a mental health day, they're open about it, and we encourage, when you do take a mental health day, to report back to the team what you did on your day off. And I don't really care if it was a spa or a walk on the beach or Netflix all day. Whatever you need to do to feel better and to recover is fine. But what that does, it brings to the forefront that mental health is something that everyone struggles with, and something that has to be maintained. Human connection. So again, I'm talking about the humans in all of us, and we use a platform called Slack for our internal team communications. It's if you haven't seen it, it's like WhatsApp with a whole bunch of channels for different topics and so on. And we've got a whole channel dedicated to our Friday stand-up. So every Friday morning, everyone in the company gets a little ping, and it asks you 4 questions. How was your week? What gave you the most joy this week? Who in the team deserves a high five and why? And what are your weekend plans? And as our team grows, this keeps us all connected to each other, because my whole team knows that it's my son's birthday this weekend and we're going to celebrate, or my team knows that my best friend's getting married and I've got a bachelor party this weekend. So these things kind of keep us all kind of aligned on a personal level, which is quite cool. A culture of feedback. So the way we've built our business is through feedback, and we understand that, yes?
Can you say the Slack message every Friday? What was it? 4, 5 things?
It was 4 questions.
Yeah.
So it's, how was your week? What gave you the most joy this week? Who in the team deserves a high five and why? And what are your weekend plans?
Thank you.
Sure. In terms of feedback, we've built our whole business on the back of feedback, and we understand that as people, the only way we really grow is through feedback. So every team member has a one-on-one with their team leader every single week. And what is discussed in the one-on-one is what's going well, what's not going well, what should we start doing, what should we stop doing, and what should we continue doing. So that's 5 questions. If you guys would like me to repeat them, I'm happy to. But what's going well, what's not going well, what should we start doing, what should we stop doing, and what should we continue doing. And the manager at the end of it would ask, what can I do to help you do a better job? And it's amazing what comes from these conversations. You know, it's important for the leader to also show vulnerability, because people sometimes don't share very easily. But as soon as the leader's actually vulnerable and they see like the leader's also only human, just like me, it encourages people to share. That, coupled with human connection and getting to know each other on a personal level, not just business, it makes people willing to share. And if that feedback is used, your business improves in leaps and bounds much faster than you think. Gratitude and celebration. I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to speed things up a little bit. Gratitude and celebration. So Slack, our internal communication tool, we've got a whole channel reserved for appreciation. And that is when team members, they big each other up on things that they are doing well or they have done well. And you'd be surprised how much this group is used and how great it is. Because a lot of the time people are really doing a good job and they don't get recognized. You know, once a year you get recognized and you get a promotion and whatever, but on a daily basis for smaller things, it allows you to really give thanks and gratitude to people. And then once a month, we've got our champ of the month. And so on Slack, Lee, who's our office manager, every month she gets votes from everyone in the company. Who is champ of the month this month? And every month someone is voted to be champ of the month. They know that they were voted by the rest of the team. It's not me who chose them because I thought they did a good job on the project. It's the whole team who votes. And this has been very impactful. And this person wins a grocery voucher, like a decent grocery voucher. Focus. All right. So as our industry grows, it's very tempting to be looking at our competition and being like, what are they doing? How are we better? How are they better? And you can become obsessed with that. And we've seen it a lot in the CrossFit world in our country, where there's been an explosion and a gym opens down the road. And the most important thing, like in our company, like what I say to the team, and actually Leslie's very good at this as well, is focus on yourself and don't worry about what others are doing. It's good to understand, what the landscape is, but it's important to just focus on yourself. And in terms of growth, like we're trying to grow, but the easiest way to grow is just to give your current customers the best possible service and product, because if you do that, you will grow, and people will talk about you. Transparency, Okay, so I used to be very nervous about sharing our company like financials with my team. Our revenue figures, our churn figures, our cash flow, etc. I used to be very nervous about it because I just thought not everyone can handle it, right? And since about a year ago, Leslie's smiling because she encouraged me to share more around this with the entire team. So once a month we've got a full hands-on, all hands meeting with the entire company, and we do what we call a company update. And in the company update we share the real numbers of this is our revenue, this is our target, this is how much we smashed our target by, this is how much we missed our target by, this was churn, this is the number of gyms that have cancelled our software this month. And what we found is actually it was the opposite of what I used to think. I used to think people couldn't handle it, but when people are aware and when these things are transparent, they get it. They end up being more invested in the whole strategy. And then the last one is a fun one, business, health and fun. So, like I'm a business owner and I'm obsessed with my business, like I said to you guys. Health is something that I'm very enthusiastic about, and I love to have fun. So once a quarter, we've got a team day. We try and have everyone in the office together once a quarter. And this team day is centered around these three items, business, health, and fun. So it's usually a few hours of workshops, strategy meetings, alignment, and the idea behind that, this is the business part, is to make sure that everyone's aligned. Everyone understands what is our main objectives, because you have to have everyone aligned in this direction. And then health, we all go and we do a big workout at one of our clients. And it allows everyone in the company, even our developers who are not customer facing, it allows them to experience the people that we are serving. And fun is we go out afterwards and we have a social. And the fun part of it, you know, as your team grows, it becomes more expensive to do. But I find that the ROI is huge on the social aspect. Because as soon as people get to know each other outside of the work in a more relaxed environment, they end up working better together going forward. Yeah, and it's also just important to make sure that the fun stops at a certain time so that it doesn't become too much fun. I would like to ask you guys if you've got any questions or ideas or thoughts. Very open to feedback. Looks like you wanted to say something. Oh. Cool. All right. Yes, Farag.
I may have done that. There's something we could talk about as well on the stage, but you mentioned Slack, and we use Slack for coaches and between the business side of things. Client side, what would you recommend that's similar to Slack? Because we currently use WhatsApp to communicate with our clients, but I love the idea of having those channels. Do you know anything like that we could use on the client side, or could that be something that you'd be looking at integrate with Octiv?
We've got something up our sleeves coming soon. Yeah. So look, there are various platforms to use. Obviously, WhatsApp is not the ideal platform because WhatsApp is very intrusive. Like in our business, you're not allowed to WhatsApp each other unless it's urgent. If there's something urgent, then you can send a WhatsApp or a call. That's why Slack is great, because you understand if you've got a Slack notification, it's a work notification. But yeah, it's a good question. There is something, all jokes aside, that we are working on, because as your gym management platform, it does fall under our responsibility to solve this problem. So I'll chat to you later about that. Yeah. Awesome. So guys, thank you. Before we wrap up, fun.
When you mentioned culture, how do you go about articulating that to client comes in, at what stage would you start mentioning that?
To your clients.
Yeah, like how would you start educating? What's the process that you would recommend to educate?
Yeah.
Your specific
It's a very good question. So Fahad was asking, how do you educate your clients about your culture? And my opinion on it is you don't need to. My opinion on it is your culture is how you make someone feel. And it is visible and tangible. People can feel it when they walk in and interact with your business. And I don't think you ever need to educate people. I think, in your marketing messaging, it's important that your marketing is aligned with your values. Yeah, that's kind of my opinion on it. Unless anyone has any ideas about this. Yeah. Cool, so before we do our draw, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in today and for attending. Really enjoyed chatting to you guys. Let's all raise our games. Thanks.